تحياتي اخوان واخوات الاعزاء، معكم نهار. واليوم اكو كلش مقالة كلش مهمة اسمها Evidence Over Hysteria. فانا ايش حسوي؟ حخلي الكمبيوتر يقراه حتى نقدر نسمعه together واحنا بالبروسس. احاول اترجمه للعربي.
After falling under much scrutiny, Medium has deleted Gin's post. Of note, Gin is a former 2012 Romney digital campaign staffer with no background in medicine or infectious disease. We are leaving it up for anyone who wants to read, while also including a thread from a biologist who has refuted it. Click on the tweet below to read. After watching the outbreak of COVID-19 for the past 2 months, I've followed the pace of the infection, its severity, and how our world is tackling the virus. While we should be concerned and diligent, the situation has dramatically elevated to a mob-like fear spreading faster than COVID-19 itself. When 13% of Americans believe they are currently infected with COVID-19, mathematically impossible, full-on panic is blocking our ability to think clearly and determine how to deploy our resources to stop this virus. Over 3/4 of Americans are scared of what we are doing to our society through law and hysteria, not of infection or spreading COVID-19 to those most vulnerable. The following article is a systematic overview of COVID-19 driven by data from medical professionals and academic articles that will help you understand what is going on. Sources include CDC, WHO, NIH, NHS, University of Oxford, Stanford, Harvard, NEJM, JAMA, and several others.
تحياتي اخواني واخواتي الاعزاء، معكم نهار. واليوم هذا واحد اسمه ايرن جن. هذا الشخص كان يشتغل بالكامبين مالت ميت رامني. المقال مالته كلش مهم، وكلش يعني كلش مهم حتى الناس يعرفون الامور اللي قاعد تصير. يعني مثلا هو جاب يعني ما حيجيب حاجات من عنده. كل الموجود بالمقالة هي عبارة عن جهات موثوق بها. مثل عندك السي دي سي والورلد هيلث اورجانيزيشن NIH, NHS, University of Oxford, Stanford and Harvard and some other sources. So هذا الرجال ما قاعد يحكي من عنده، بس عنده يعني معلومات مهمة. نكمل.
The following article is a systematic overview of COVID-19 driven by data from medical professionals and academic articles that will help you understand what is going on. Sources include CDC, WHO, NIH, NHS, University of Oxford, Stanford, Harvard, NEJM, JAMA, and several others. I'm quite experienced at understanding virality, how things grow, and data. In my vocation, I'm most known for popularizing the growth hacking movement in Silicon Valley that specializes in driving rapid and viral adoption of technology products. Data is data. Our focus here isn't treatments but numbers. You don't need a special degree to understand what the data says and doesn't say. Numbers are universal.
يقول الأرقام، المعلومات الموثوق بها هي معلومات يعني جاية data is data. يقول ما جاء من آراء. فيقول الأرقام ما تكذب، وكلامه صح. لهذا هذا الارتيكل قلت كلش مهم ولازم يعني I'll share it with you guys.
Numbers are universal. I hope you walk away with a more informed perspective on how you can help and fight back against the hysteria that is driving our country into a dark place. You can help us focus our scarce resources on those who are most vulnerable, who need our help. Note, the following graphs and numbers are as of mid-March 2020. Things are moving quickly, so I update this article twice a day. Most graphs are as of March.
هو قاعد يقول الحاجات اللي قاعد تصير بسرعة. فهو شو يقول احنا الحياة مالتنا والعالم مالتنا it's going into a dark place. فيقول هاي المعلومات حتساعدنا حتى نقدر نفتهم الموضوع اللي يحكي به هو.
Most graphs are as of March 20th, 2020. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Total cases are the wrong metric. A critical question to ask yourself when you first look at a data set is, what is our metric for success? Let's start at the top. How is it possible that more than 20% of Americans believe they will catch COVID-19? Here's how. Vanity metrics, a single data point with no context. Wouldn't this picture scare you?
يقول هذا أكثر من 20% من الأمريكان يتوقعون بأنهم هم already صار بهم المرض. فيقول هل هاي الصورة ترعبك؟
Wouldn't this picture scare you? Look at all of those large red scary circles. These images come from the now infamous Johns Hopkins COVID-19 tracking map. What started as a data transparency.
هو هسه هنا بهذا الفيديو حيحكي على هاي الدوائر الحمراء الكبيرة والدوائر الحمراء الصغيرة. فيقول هو يقول المرض صار له أكثر من 4 أشهر. يا هي من دولة الدوائر لازم يعني تقل كم cases are active كم cases are inactive. هل الشخص من يموت يظل بهاي الماب ينشال what's going on لأن هواية أمور معتمين عليها.
What started as a data transparency effort has now molded into an unintentional tool for hysteria and panic. An important question to ask yourself is, what do these bubbles actually mean? Each bubble represents the total number of COVID-19 cases per country. The situation looks serious, yet we know that this virus is over 4 months old, so how many of these cases are active? Immediately, we now see that just under half of those terrifying red bubbles aren't relevant or actionable. The total number of cases isn't illustrative of what we should do now. This is a single vanity data point with no context. It isn't information or knowledge. To know how to respond, we need more numbers to tell a story and to paint the full picture. As a metaphor, the daily revenue of a business doesn't tell you a whole lot about profitability, capital structure, or overhead.
يقول حتى تفتهم اللي قاعد يصير بعض الأحيان ما تقدر أنت تعرف البزنس إيش قاعد يسوي بيوم واحد. يعني أنت إذا تريد if you want to check إذا هذا البزنس makes a profit or not لازم تقيس أقل شيء سنة أو سنتين in the back حتى تعرف هذا how much this business is netting, what's the gross, what's everything. ما تقدر أنت تعين البروفيت مالت البزنس على يوم واحد. هذا الحكي مالته.
As a metaphor, the daily revenue of a business doesn't tell you a whole lot about profitability, capital structure, or overhead. The same goes for the total number of cases. The data isn't actionable. We need to look at ratios and percentages to tell us what to do next: conversion rate, growth rate, and severity. Time-lapsing new cases gives us perspective. Breaking down each country by the date of the first infection helps us track the growth and impact of the virus. We can see how total cases are growing against a consistent time scale. Here are new cases time-lapsed by country and date of first 100 total cases. Here is a better picture of US confirmed case daily growth. The United States is tracking with other European nations at doubling every 3 days or so. As we measure and test more Americans, this will continue to grow. Our time-lapse growth is lower than China, but not as good as South Korea, Japan, Singapore, or Taiwan. All are considered models of how to beat COVID-19. The United States is performing average, not great, compared to the other modern countries by this metric. Still, there is a massive blind spot with this type of graph. None of these charts are weighted on a per capita basis. It treats every country as a single entity. As we will see, this fails to tell us what is going on in
البير كابيتا يعني العد الفرادي، ما ادري شو اسمه بالعربي، بس البير كابيتا مثلا تاخذ مليون شخص وتقول من هذا المليون شخص كم واحد يموت، كم واحد يعني من عدي، كم واحد يعني severity يعني بتأذي، كل هاي الأمور. مو تقدر تاخذ الدولة كلها وتعين تقول ال number of cases is this. It has to be done per capita. أغلب الأوقات وأغلب القنوات اللي قاعد تطلع ما قاعد يسوون هيجي.
It treats every country as a single entity, as we will see. This fails to tell us what is going on in several aspects. On a per capita basis, we shouldn't be panicking. Every country has a
يقول إذا تقيس الناس المتضررين بكوفيد 19، ما لازم تكون يعني متوتر وضايج. وبعدين هسه حيقوم يسوي مقارنات بين إيطاليا والصين وهواي أماكن.
Every country has a different population size, which skews aggregate and cumulative case comparisons. By controlling for population, you can properly weigh the number of cases in the context of the local population size. Viruses don't acknowledge our human borders. The US population is 5.5x greater than Italy, 6x larger than South Korea, and 25% the size of China. Comparing the US
فهو شو يقول هنا؟ يقول التوتال مات أمريكا أكبر من إيطاليا ب5 مرات، أكبر من ساوث كوريا ب6 مرات. أمريكا عبارة عن 25% من size of China. فيقول comparing the US total numbers of cases is absolute terms is rather silly. يقول أنت ما تقدر يعني تقيس هاي الدولة بهاي الدولة، لازم انت تعرف رقم الوفيات، رقم الناس اللي قاعد يموتون من pre-existing diseases. اكو ناس عندهم امراض ثانية، مو يعني شخص healthy وكل شي ما عنده وتحسبه ويا هذا المرض.
Comparing the US total number of cases in absolute terms is rather silly. Rank ordering based on the total number of cases shows that the US on a per capita basis is significantly lower than the top 6 nations by case volume. On a 1 million citizen per capita basis, the US moves to above mid-pack of all countries and rising, with similar case volume as Singapore, 385 cases, Cyprus, 75 cases, and United Kingdom, 3,983 cases. This is data as of March 20, 2020. But total cases even on a per capita basis will
هنا شوف هذا الشارت اللي سواه، مثلا يقول بالصين 81,000. هاي المعلومات مات مارش 20، مو مات April 1st. بمارش 20 كان التوتال positive cases بالصين 81,008. على كل مليون 56 شخص منهم متضرر. إيطاليا 47,021، 778 شخص متضرر من مليون. بإسبانيا 21,571، 461 شخص من مليون متضرر. ألمانيا 19,848، 237 شخص من مليون متضرر. بعدين شوية حتعرفون اكو حاجة اكبر من كورونا قاعد تنتشر بالعالم.
But total cases even on a per capita basis will always be a losing metric. The denominator, total population, is more or less fixed. We aren't having babies at the pace of viral growth. Per capita won't explain how fast the virus is moving and if it is truly exponential. COVID-19 is spreading, but probably not accelerating. Growth rates are tricky to track over time. Smaller numbers are easy to move than larger numbers. As an example, GDP growth of 3% for the US means billions of dollars while 3% for Bermuda means millions. Generally,
يقول هذا هنا قاعد يقارن 3% مات دولة صغيرة مقارنة ب3% من يعني بأمريكا. يقول 3% عند الأمريكان مليارات الدولارات إذا يريدون يقيسون الاقتصاد مالتهم، بس 3% بدولة صغيرة هي تكون ملايين.
Generally, growth rates decline over time, but the nominal increase may still be significant. This holds true of daily confirmed case increases. Daily growth rates declined over time across all countries regardless of particular policy solutions, such as shutting the borders or social distancing. The daily growth data across the world is a little noisy. Weighing daily growth.
هاي شوف ال daily increases in number of reported COVID-19 cases. شوف شلون يقيسوها. عندك هذا الأزرق الصين، the yellow South Korea, the green is Italy, Iran, US بالنص. هذا الثاني daily percent change smooth over 4 days. هذا chart مات 4 أيام. هذا قاعد يقول قاعد تقيس الجروث ريت، يعني الريت مات التطور أو من يصير expanded. هذا US قاعد ينزل.
Weighing daily growth of confirmed cases by a relative daily growth factor cleans up the picture. More than 1 is increasing and below 1 is declining. For all of March, the world has hovered around 1.1. This translates to an average daily growth rate of 10%, with ups and downs on a daily basis. This isn't great, but it is good news as COVID-19 most likely isn't increasing in virality. The growth rate of the growth rate is approximately 10%, however, the data is quite noisy. With inconsistent country-to-country reporting and what qualifies as a confirmed case, the more likely explanation is that we are increasing our measurement, but the virus hasn't increased in viral capability. Recommended containment and prevention strategies are still quite effective at stopping the spread. Cases globally are increasing, it is a virus after all. But beware of believing metrics designed to intentionally scare like cases doubling. These are typically small numbers over small numbers and sliced on a per country basis.
يقول هاي الأرقام اللي قاعد نشوفها هسه أرقام صغيرة وما قاعد يعني قاعد تنزل، ما قاعد تصعد، فهم ما يقول من يكثرون التستنج يعرفون نسبة الانتشار.
Globally, COVID-19's growth rate is rather steady. Remember, viruses ignore our national boundaries. Viruses though don't grow infinitely forever and forever. As with most things in nature, viruses follow a common pattern, a bell curve. Watch the bell curve. As COVID-19 spreads and declines, which it will decline despite what.
البل كيرف، هذا البل كيرف يعني شوف حاجة بعدين تصعد بعدين توصل للبيك بعدين تنزل. فهذا بالشارت قاعد يوري ساوث تشاينا هاي تشاينا بالكيسز وصلت أكثر إلى هذا الحد، بعدين شوي تنزل. ساوث كوريا نفس الشيء. فهذا المعنى البل كيرف. انتوا قاعد تسمعون بعض الحين flattening the curve لأنه كان كل شيء تمام فجأة صعد وينزل.
As COVID-19 spreads and declines, which it will decline despite what the media tells you, every country will follow a similar pattern. The following is a more detailed graph of S. Korea's successful defeat of COVID-19.
يقول هذا الفيروس لازم تقلل الكيسز مالته، ما حينتشر ويجتاح العالم كله. يقول it has to come down.
Korea's successful defeat of COVID-19 compared also to China with thousands of more cases and deaths. It is a bell curve. Here is a more detailed graph of S. Korea graphed against the total number of cases. Here is a graph from Italy showing a bell curve in symptom onset and number of cases, which may point to
the number of cases as of March 10. شوف بلشت شوي تصعد and it's peaking. Hi, South Korea. Here's a graph from Italy showing bell curve, symptoms, onset, and number of cases which may be on. شوف هاي إيطاليا as of January, March 9th قاعد يشوفون declining.
Here is a graph from Italy showing a bell curve in symptom onset and number of cases, which may point to the beginning of the end for Italy. JAMA https://JAMA network.com/journal/JAMA/pages/coronavirus alert. Bell curves is the dominant trait of outbreaks. A virus doesn't grow linearly forever. It accelerates, plateaus, and then declines. Whether it is environmental or our own efforts, viruses accelerate and quickly decline. This fact of nature is represented in Farr's law. CDC's of bend the curve or flatten the curve reflects this natural reality. It is important to note that in both scenarios, the total number of COVID-19 cases will be similar. Flattening the curve's focus is a shock to the healthcare system which can increase fatalities due to capacity constraints. In the long term, it isn't infection prevention. Unfortunately, flattening the curve doesn't include other downsides and costs of execution. Both the CDC and WHO are optimizing virality and healthcare utilization, while ignoring the economic shock to our system. Both organizations assume you are going to get infected, eventually, and it won't be that bad. A low probability of catching COVID-19. The World Health Organization, WHO, released a study on how China responded to COVID-19. Currently, this study is one of the most exhaustive pieces published on how the virus spreads. The results of their research show that COVID-19 doesn't spread as easily as we first thought or the media had us believe. Remember, people abandoned their dogs out of fear of getting infected? According to their report, if you come in contact with someone who tested
يقول اكو ناس قاعد يتركون الحيوانات مالتهم لانه قاعد يخافون انه الحيوانات مالتهم تنقل لهم المرض.
According to their report, if you come in contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you have a 1 to 5% chance of catching it as well.
يقول إذا أنت التقيت بشخص هو already عنده كورونا فيروس ال chances of you get infected it's من 1 إلى 5%. بالميديا يقول لك ال chances of you getting infected it's highly possible. فهو هذا الشخص هسه شوية حيبلش يحكي بهواية أمور علمية، فلهذا أنا قلت هذا الارticle I have to read it to you guys.
According to their report, if you come in contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you have a 1 to 5% chance of catching it as well. The variability is large because the infection is based on the type of contact and how long. The majority
يقول أغلب الأوقات لازم تعرف التايب اوف كونتاكت، يعني شلون أنت شفت الشخص، عطس عليك، كح عليك، ايش قد الفترة الاكسبوجر تايم، 5 دقائق 10 دقائق 20 دقيقة 3 ساعات، هاي كلها تأثر بانتقال المرض من شخص لشخص.
The majority of viral infections come from prolonged exposures in confined spaces with other infected individuals. Person-to-person and surface contact is by far the most common cause. From the WHO report,
يقول أغلب الأوقات الترانسميشن مالت الكورونا هو من شخص لشخص، أو بأنه واحد يقيس مكان contaminated وبعدين يقيس عينه، يقيس أنفه، حلقه، لهذا ينتقل من شخص يعني من السيرفيس to the person.
From the WHO report, when a cluster of several infected people occurred in China, it was most often, 78 to 85%, caused by an infection within the family by droplets and other carriers of infection in close contact with an infected person. From the CDC,
الدرابلتس هاي مثل الواحد من يعطس اكو يصير مثل يعني توخ حاجات على الناس. هذا بعدين اما تستنشقه اما يروح بمنطقة عندك اما بعيونك اما بحلقك. لهذا الانسان يكون infected by corona.
From the CDC's study on transmission in China and Princess Cruise outbreak. A growing body of evidence indicates that COVID-19 transmission is facilitated in confined settings. For example, a large cluster, 634 confirmed cases, of COVID-19 secondary infections occurred aboard a cruise ship in Japan, representing about 1/5 of the persons aboard who were tested for the virus. This finding indicates the high transmissibility of COVID-19 in enclosed spaces. Dr. Paul Awerder, the clinical director for the Division of Infectious Diseases at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, echoes this finding.
هذا هنا اعطى مثال على كروز شيب، لأن كروز شيب فيها أكثر من 643 confirmed cases لأنه كلهم موجودين بمكان واحد.
If you have a COVID-19 patient in your household, your risk of developing the infection is about 10%.
إذا واحد عندك بالبيت وبي كورونا chances of you يعني يتحول المرض من شخص إليك تقريبا 10%.
If you were casually exposed to the virus in the workplace, e.g., you were not locked up in conference room for 6 hours with someone who was infected like a hospital, your chance of infection is about 0.5%. According to Dr. Awerder, these transmission rates are very similar to the seasonal flu. Air-based transmission or untraceable community spread is
يقول هاي الانتقال العدوى من شخص لشخص مثل الفلو.
Air-based transmission or untraceable community spread is very unlikely. According to WHO's COVID-19 lead Maria Van Kerkhove, true community-based spreading is very rare. The data from China shows
هاي كلش مهمة. هاي دائما يقولوا لك لازم تبتعد عن الأماكن اللي بيها هواية ناس. هنا يقول لك هاي الشغلة unlikely. بس اكو شغلة هم بعد ان شاء الله بالفيديو القادمة. اكو واحد اسمه patient 31 تحكي عن وحدة سافرت من الصين راحت الكوريا، راحت للمطعم she infected everyone بالمطعم، بعدين راحت للكنيسة she infected everyone بالكنيسة. because of patient 31 والديتيلز ان شاء الله احكيها بعدين. that's why قالوا انه هذا المرض ينتقل عن طريق يعني انتشاره مو طبيعي community spread.
The data from China shows that community-based spread was only a very small handful of cases. This virus is not circulating in the community, even in the highest incidence areas across China, Van Kerkhove said. Transmission by fine aerosols in the air over long distances is not one of the main causes of spread. Most of the 2,055 infected hospital workers were either infected at home or in the early phase of the outbreak in Wuhan when hospital safeguards were not raised yet, she said.
يقول هذول 2055 شخص اللي انصابوا بالصين هم ما انصابوا بالصين لأنه طلعوا برا، هم انصابوا بأنه ببيوتهم كانوا موجودين وما يعرفون أنهم مصابين، وكانت المستشفيات مالتهم ما ماخذين الوقاية من هذا المرض.
Most of the 2,055 infected hospital workers were either infected at home or in the early phase of the outbreak in Wuhan when hospital safeguards were not raised yet, she said. True community spread involves transmission where people get infected in public spaces and there is no way to trace back the source of infection. Who believes that is not what the Chinese data shows. If community spread was super common, it wouldn't be possible to reduce the new cases through social distancing. We have never seen
يقول إذا الكوميونيتي سبريد حاجة حقيقية، يقول اتس هذا الحجر الصحي اللي قاعد يسويه وانت قاعد ويا أهلك أو ويا عائلتك، يعني بعد المرض عايش بيناتكم. يقول ما سويت شيء because this is it's you are part of a small community هو الفاميلي. again أنا قاعد أترجم الحاجات الموجودة بهذا الريبورت.
We have never seen before a respiratory pathogen that's capable of community transmission but at the same time which can also be contained with the right measures. If this was an influenza epidemic, we would have expected to see widespread community transmission across the globe by now, and efforts to slow it down or contain it would not be feasible, said Tedros Adhanom, Director General of WHO. An author of a working paper.
هاي الشغلة، يعني هذا الباراجراف هنا هو الباراجراف يعطيك احتمالين. يقول we have never seen before a respiratory pathogen that is capable of community transmission but at the same time which can also be contained with the right measures. If this was an influenza epidemic, we would have expected to see widespread community transmission across the globe by now. An effort to slow it down or contain it would not be feasible, said Tedros Adhanom, Doctor of General of World Health Organization. يعني يقول إذا هو احتمالين. احتمال الأول إنه هذا ما يقدرون يسيطرون عليه. إذا ما يسيطرون عليه now it's spreading which is highly possible. بس يقول شلون أنت تقدر توقف حاجة spreading so fast with the right measures. It's impossible.
An author of a working paper from the Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology at Princeton University said, the current scientific consensus is that most transmission via respiratory secretions happens in the form of large respiratory droplets, rather than small aerosols. Droplets, fortunately, are heavy enough that they don't travel very far and instead fall from the air after traveling only a few feet.
من واحد يعطس ومن واحد يقح، هو لازم أقل شيء المسافة بينك وبينهم تكون لازم 6 feet. حتى طريقة العطسة مالتك ما تروح ما تظل يعني straight، تعوج and then falls. When it falls, you're okay.
The media was put into a frenzy when the above authors released their study on COVID-19's ability to survive in the air. The study did find the virus could survive in the air for a couple of hours. However, this study was
هذا هسه حيحكي بأنه قالوا إنه الفيروس هذا airborne. قرأت هذا الارتيكل وكل الإذاعات الأمريكية نشرته، بس هذا الارتيكل غير صحيح. هذا disease is not airborne unless they do something to make it airborne.
The study did find the virus could survive in the air for a couple of hours. However, this study was designed as academic exercise rather than a real-world test. This study put COVID-19 into a spray bottle to mist it into the air.
يقول بهاي الطريقة إنه خلوا الكورونا فيروس مثل الرشاش، شلون ترش هيجي دائما it spreads mist bottle، يعني مثل ما بعرف شو بيسموه بالعربي.
I don't know anyone who coughs in mist form, and it is unclear if the viral load was large enough to infect another individual, as one doctor, who wants to remain anonymous, told me. Corona doesn't have wings. To summarize, China, Singapore, and South Korea's containment efforts work because community-based and airborne transmission aren't common. The most common form of transmission is person-to-person or surface-based.
يقول أغلب الأوقات الحاجات اللي نجحت بالصين وبالسنغافور وكوريا الجنوبية بأنهم سيطروا على الوضع، وعرفوا إنه هاي الفيروس مو airborne، ما ينتشر عن طريق الهواء، بس هو ينتشر عن طريقتين person to person و surface based.
The most common form of transmission is person-to-person or surface-based. Common transmission surfaces. COVID-19's ability to live for a long period of time is limited on most surfaces, and it is quite easy to kill with typical household cleaners, just like the normal flu. COVID-19 be detected on copper after 4 hours.
هنا حيقول المدة مالت الكورونا من واحد يعطس أو يكح على سيرفس إيش قد حتطول. فهو يقول هنا على الكوبر يظل تقريبا 4 ساعات ويموت. على الكاردبورد الكرتون يظل 24 ساعة يوم ويموت. على البلاستيك أو stainless steel يظل هناك تقريبا almost 72 hours. Very vulnerable to UV light and heat. يقول يموت بسرعة بالحرارة وضوء الشمس.
COVID-19 be detected on copper after 4 hours and 24 hours on cardboard. COVID-19 survive best on plastic and stainless steel. Presence doesn't mean infectious. The viral concentration falls significantly over time. The virus showed a half-life of about 0.8 hours on copper, 3.46 hours on cardboard, 5.6 hours on steel and 6.8 hours on plastic. According to Dylan Morris,
يقول هذا الأمور غير doesn't mean they're infectious، بس يقول ذن يعني يظلن half life على الكوبر which is 8 hours، 3.5 hours on a cardboard، 5.6 hours on a steel, 6.8 hours on a plastic.
According to Dylan Morris, one of the authors, we do not know how much virus is actually needed to infect a human being with high probability, nor how easily the virus is transferred from the cardboard to one's hand when touching a package. According to Dr.
يقول لحد الآن إنه ما عندهم أي دراسات تقول يعني مثلا نقول واحد الكرتونة واحد عطس على الكرتونة وصار على هذا الكرتونة نقول 5 ساعات، هل هاي بعد له ساعة أو ساعتين الفيروس يموت؟ هل شون حينتقل؟ هل هو اللي يراد له حينتشر؟ what's going on؟ لحد الآن ما مسوين عليه أي study.
According to Dr. Awerder, it's thought that this virus can survive on surfaces such as hands, hard surfaces, and fabrics. Preliminary data indicates up to 72 hours on hard surfaces like steel and plastic, and up to 12 hours on fabric. COVID-19 will likely burn.
يقول على الهارد سيرفيسز والفابريك يظل المرض تقريبا حوالي 72 ساعة على الهارد سيرفيسز على الأماكن القوية مثل الكاردبورد، كوبر، بلاستيك and stainless steel، بس يظل على بالفابريك المدة 12 ساعة which is والله نسيت اسمه الفابريك.
COVID-19 will likely burn off in the summer. Due to COVID-19's sensitivity to UV light and heat, just like the normal influenza virus, it is very likely that it will burn off as humidity increases and temperatures rise. Released on March 10, one study mapped COVID-19 virality capability by high temperature and high humidity.
يقول احتمال كبير انه بالصيفية الكيسز تقل لانه الشمس تقتل تخلي اكثر الاماكن حارة، وهذا لهذا السبب الفيروس يموت.
Released on March 10, one study mapped COVID-19 virality capability by high temperature and high humidity. It found that both significantly reduced the ability of the virus to spread from person to person. From the study, this result is consistent with the fact that the high temperature and high humidity significantly reduce the transmission of influenza. It indicates that the arrival of summer and rainy season in the northern hemisphere can effectively reduce the transmission of the COVID-19. The University of Maryland mapped severe COVID-19 outbreaks with local weather patterns around the world, from the US to China. They found that the virus thrives in a certain temperature and humidity channel. The researchers found that all cities experiencing significant outbreaks of COVID-19 have very similar winter climates with an average temperature of 41 to 52 degrees Fahrenheit, an average humidity level of 47% to 79% with a narrow east-west distribution along the same 30 to 50 N latitude, said the University of Maryland. Based on what we have documented so far, it appears that the virus has a harder time spreading between people in warmer, tropical climates, said study leader Mohammed Sajadi, MD, Associate Professor of Medicine in the UMSM.
يقول لقوا بالستدي سووا بحوث بأنه بالصيف الانتقال المرض من شخص لشخص تقل وهواية.
Based on what we have documented so far, it appears that the virus has a harder time spreading between people in warmer, tropical climates, said study leader Mohammed Sajadi, MD, Associate Professor of Medicine in the UMSM. Physician scientist at the Institute of Human Virology and a member of GVN. In the image below, the zone at risk for a significant community spread in the near term includes land areas within the green bands. Children and teens aren't at risk. It's already well established that the young aren't particularly vulnerable.
يقول الأطفال والتينيجرز ما يعني they're good ما ينتقل لهم هذا المرض بهواية والكيسز مالتهم كلش قليلة compared to شخص already عنده أمراض ثانية.
It's already well established that the young aren't particularly vulnerable. In fact, there isn't a single death reported below the age of 10 in the world and most children who test positive don't show symptoms.
لهذا السبب أعيد إنه هذا الارتيكل مالت مارش 20th صارت تقريبا وفيات مات أطفال أعتقد 3 وأكثر من 50 شخص تحت عمر 15 ماتوا من عندهم من COVID-19.
In fact, there isn't a single death reported below the age of 10 in the world and most children who test positive don't show symptoms. As well, infection rates are lower for individuals below the age of 19, which is similar to SARS and MERS, COVID-19's sister viruses. According to the WHO's
يقول SARS and MERS هن أخوات كورونا. بعدين أكو كم بحث حقرهم بعدين الشرح دقيق على شنو SARS شنو MERS disease وشنو الفرق بيناتهم.
According to the WHO's COVID-19 mission in China, only 8.1% of cases were 20-somethings, 1.2% were teens, and 0.9% were 9 or younger. As of the study date February 20th, 78% of the cases reported were ages 30 to 69.
فهو يقول إحنا سووا بحث يعرفون إنه according to the World Health Organization Corona 19 mission in China يقول only 8.1 cases were 20 somethings 1.2 يقول تقريبا 8% كانوا 20 يعني بالعشرينات 1.2% were teens and 0.9 were 9 or younger. يقول أقل من 10% العفو 0.9 يعني 0.9% were 9 or younger. شوف هاي المعلومات ما قاعد يطلعوها بالأخبار. As of Sunday, as of the study date February 20th, 78% of the cases reported were ages 30 to 69. يقول 78% من هاي الكيسز كانوا بين أعمار 30 إلى 69 سنة.
As of the study date February 20th, 78% of the cases reported were ages 30 to 69. The WHO hypothesizes this is for a biological reason and isn't related to lifestyle or exposure. Even when we looked at households, we did not find a single example of a child bringing the infection into the household and transmitting to the parents. It was the other way around. And the children tend to have a mild disease, said Van Kerkhove.
يقول ما لقوا أي بحوث بأنه الطفل يجيب المرض للبيت، بس لقوا العكس، لقوا الطفل ياخذ المرض من البيت، لأنه الإكسبوجر تايم وكلهم قاعدين بمكان واحد ينتقل إلى المرض.
And the children tend to have a mild disease, said Van Kerkhove. According to a WSJ article, children have a near zero chance of becoming ill. They are more likely to get normal flu than COVID-19. A World Health Organization report on China concluded that cases of COVID-19 in children were relatively rare and mild. Among cases in people under age 19, only 2.5% developed severe disease while 0.2% developed critical disease. Among nearly 6,300 COVID-19 cases reported by the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on March 8, there were no reported deaths in anyone under 30. Only 0.7% of infections were in children under 9 and 4.6% of cases were in those ages 10 to 19 years old. Only 2% of the patients in a review of nearly 45,000 confirmed COVID-19 cases in China were children, and there were no reported deaths in children under 10, according to a study published in JAMA last month. In contrast, there have been 136 pediatric deaths from influenza in the U.S. this flu season. About 8% of cases were in people in their 20s. Those 10 to 19 years old accounted for 1% of cases and those under 10 also accounted for only 1%. However, even if children and teens are not suffering severe symptoms themselves, they may shed large amounts of virus and may do so for many days, says James Campbell, a professor of pediatrics at the University of Maryland School of Medicine. Children had a virus in their secretions for 6 to 22 days or an average of 12 days. Shedding virus doesn't always mean you're able to transmit the virus, he notes. It is still important to consider that prolonged shedding of high viral loads from children is still a risky combination within the home since the majority of transmission occurs within a home-like confined environment. A strong, but unknown viral effect. While the true viral capacity is unknown at this moment, it is theorized that COVID-19 is more than the seasonal flu but less than other viruses. The average number of people to which a single infected person will transmit the virus, or RO, range from as low as 1.5 to a high of 3.0. Newer analysis suggests that this viral rate is declining. According to Nobel laureate
هاي الطريقة how contagious is a disease. كل شخص يعدي شخصين وكل شخصين يعدون هاي الأرقام، هاي الأرقام تعدي هاي الأرقام، فالهم الريشيو مالتهم 2 to 3.11. The estimates preliminary is likely to change. هذا الكورونا طريقة العدوى مالته 1 شخصين يعدون هالقد. هاي الزيكا ديزيز، هاي الميزلز، هاي الابولا، هاي ال HIV، هاي السيزونال فلو، هاي نوروفيروسز. الزيكا يعدي 1 يعدي 2 هيجي 1 very great information.
According to Nobel laureate and biophysicist Michael Levitt, the infection rate is declining. Every coronavirus patient in China infected on average 2.2 people a day, spelling exponential growth that can only lead to disaster. But then it started dropping.
يقول كل شخص يعدي شخصين 2.2 a day. كل شخص يعدي 2 أشخاص بهذا الباراجراف. هذا يعدي هالقد. So 2.2 على كل شخص 2.2 so then يجي.
But then it started dropping, and the number of new daily infections is now close to 0. He compared it to interest rates again. Even if the interest rate keeps dropping, you still make money. The sum you invested does not lessen, it just grows more slowly. When discussing diseases, it frightens people a lot because they keep hearing about new cases every day. but the fact that the infection rate is slowing down means the end of the pandemic is near. What about asymptomatic spread? The majority of cases see symptoms within a few days.
هاي كلش مهمة. asymptomatic spread بأنه شخص ما عنده أعراض المرض أو عنده الإميون سيستم. دائما احنا نلاحظها اللي صار بتام هانك، بوريس جونسون، وكم من الفوتبول بلايرز الموجودين بأمريكا يقولون كلهم عندهم كورونا فيروس وما عندهم أي ساين بأنه متأثر بيهم. ذول الأشخاص اللي هم اللي ينقلون العدوى من شخص لشخص، لأنهم ما عندهم أي أعراض مات العدوى. This is right here. That's very important.
The majority of cases see symptoms within a few days, not 2 weeks as originally believed. On true asymptomatic spread.
يقول الشخص من when they get infected يشوفون الأعراض within 2 days، مو 2 weeks مثل ما يقولون الحضانة مالته يظل 2 weeks. نسيتها. Incubation period.
On true asymptomatic spread, the data is still unclear but increasingly unlikely. 2 studies point to a low infection rate from pre-symptomatic and asymptomatic individuals. One study said 10% of infections come from people who don't show symptoms yet. Another WHO study reported 1.2% of confirmed cases were true.
pre-symptomatic and symptomatic individuals يعني أشخاص already عندهم أمراض ثانية، و asymptomatic person هو شخص ما عنده أي مرض قبل بس يقدر يعدي. فهذا الفرق.
Another WHO study reported 1.2% of confirmed cases were truly asymptomatic. Several studies confirming asymptotic spread have ended up disproven. It is important to note there is a difference between never showing symptoms and
يقول أغلب أكثر من بحث سووا إنه لقوا إنه ماكو حاجة اسمها شخص ما عنده أعراض وهذا الشخص نفسه يعدي. أغلب الأوقات الشخص اللي يعديك هو already المرض مبين بيه، فلهذا يعديك. فيقول أكثر من several studies كم بحث سووا and they have ended up disproven.
It is important to note there is a difference between never showing symptoms and pre-symptomatic, and the media is promoting an unproven narrative.
يقول أكو فرق بين never showing يعني ما يوري أي أعراض المرض، وشخص already عنده أمراض ثانية. والأخبار والميديا ما قاعد يقولون الحقيقة.
It is important to note there is a difference between never showing symptoms and pre-symptomatic, and the media is promoting an unproven narrative. Almost all people end up in the latter camp within 5 days, almost never the former. It is very unlikely for individuals with COVID-19 to never show symptoms. WHO and CDC claim that asymptomatic spread isn't a concern and quite rare. Iceland is leading the global in testing its entire population of 300,000 for asymptomatic spread, not just those that show symptoms. They randomly tested 1,800 citizens who don't show symptoms and, as far as they knew, were not exposed to positive individuals.
Iceland they took يعني أخذوا الاختبارات مالتهم إلى whole different level. فقالوا خلينا نسوي الاختبار على كل البوبوليشن مالتهم، مريض كانوا أو غير مريض. shows they did randomly tested، يعني اختاروا 1800 شخص هم ما عندهم أي أعراض وسووا عليهم اختبار.
They randomly tested 1,800 citizens who don't show symptoms and, as far as they knew, were not exposed to positive individuals. Of this sample, only 19 tested positive for COVID-19, or 1.1% of the sample.
من 1800 شخص اللي سووا لهم randomly tested 19 من عندهم كانوا ما عندهم أي signs of them being infected, which is 1.1%.
Of this sample, only 19 tested positive for COVID-19, or 1.1% of the sample. Obviously, this type of viral spread is the most concerning. However, based on the level of media attention and the global size of positive infections, it seems more probable we keep looking for a COVID-19 viral trait that doesn't exist. Another way of looking at virality and asymptotic spread is the number of flight attendants, airport staff, or pilots that have tested positive for COVID-19. Out of the thousands of flights since November 2019, only a handful of airport and airline staff have tested positive, such as a pilot.
يقول هذول الناس اللي they don't show any symptoms وما عندهم يعني signs of infection. يقول لازم الفلايت اتندنتس دول اللي يشتغلون بالطيارة، الايربورت ستاف دول اللي يشتغلون باللاجج والسكيورتي والدول اللي يقودون الطائرة، لازم كلهم يكونون هم أول الناس يكونون tested positive، لأنه يعني 24 hours they're traveling from one end of the world to another end.
Out of the thousands of flights since November 2019, only a handful of airport and airline staff have tested positive, such as a pilot, some BA staff, and several TSA employees.
يقول من آلاف الأشخاص اللي يشتغلون بالإيربورتس، يقول بس أقل من 20 شخص tested positive. يقول لازم الرقم هذا يكون أعلى على حسب كلامهم.
Outside of medical and hospital staff, these individuals are in greatest contact with infected persons in confined spaces. Despite having no protective gear and most likely these people were asymptomatic, airline and airport staff aren't likely to catch COVID-19 compared to the rest of the population. Those employed in the travel sector are infected at a lower rate than the general population or healthcare workers. We still believe, looking at the data, that the force of infection here, the major driver, is people who are symptomatic, unwell, and transmitting to others along the human-to-human route, Dr. Mike Ryan of WHO Emergencies.
We still believe, looking at the data, that the force of infection here, the major driver, is people who are symptomatic and well and transmitting to others along the human-to-human route. يقول إحنا أغلب الأوقات الناس اللي ينقلون العدوى هم ناس already مريضين وقاعد يبينون إنهم مريضين، دول اللي ينقلون العدوى. دكتور مايك راين حكاها.
Mike Ryan of WHO Emergencies Program. If the symptoms are so close to other less fatal coronaviruses, what is the positivity rate of those tested? 93% of people who think they are positive aren't. Looking at the success.
يقول 93% من الأشخاص اللي يتوقعون إنه بهم هذا المرض ما بهم هو هذا المرض.
Looking at the success in Korea and Singapore, the important tool in our war chest is measurement. If we are concerned about the general non-infected population, what is the probability those who show symptoms actually test positive? What is the chance that the cough from your neighbor is COVID-19? This conversion rate will show whether or not you have a cold, another coronavirus, or heading to isolation for 2 weeks. Global data shows that 95% of people who are tested aren't positive. The positivity rate varies by country. UK, 7,132 concluded tests, of which
هنا قاعد يحجون على التست. يقول أغلب الناس اللي يقول ما يمكن هذا جيرانك اللي يعطس يمكن بكورونا ما تعرف. Looking at the success in South Korea, Singapore, the important tool in our war chest is measurement. يقول إحنا الحاجة اللي نقدر نحارب بها هو القياسات. If we're concerned about the general non-infected population، يقول إذا إحنا مهتمين بذول لحد الآن ما مصابين، what is the probability those who show symptoms actually test positive؟ يقول شنو النسبة ما ذول اللي actually مرضى يكون confirmed cases. What is the chance that the cough from your neighbor is COVID-19. يقول يمكن جيرانك إذا عطس يمكن بي عنده كورونا. This is conversion rate will show whether or not you have a cold. يقول هذا الشارت جوا يقول حيبين لك بأنه تفرق بين الكولد or كورونا حتى تعرف what to do. Are you heading to isolation for 2 weeks or what? فهنا they did a study 7132 concluded tests of which 13 شخص من 7000 شخص 13 شخص positive بكورونا. 48,000 تيست 1900 من ذولا positive. 9400 تيست من عندهم 470 positive. 3300 تيست من عندهم 99 positive. 3700 تيست 218 positive. فرنسا 762 تيست من عندهم 17 positive و 179 يعني منتظرين الريزولتس. الهستيريا 321 تيست من عندهم 2 positive والريزولتس unknown. جنوب كوريا 66,000 من عندها 1766 positive و25,568 منتظرين الريزولتس. أمريكا 445 تيست من عندها 14 positive. again هاي الأمور هاي البحث سووه بمارش 20th.
In the US, drive-through testing facilities are being deployed around the nation. Gov. Cuomo of New York released initial data from their drive-through testing. Out of the 600 that was tested in a single day, 7% were positive. Tested individuals actively show symptoms and present a doctor's note. This result is similar to public tracking on US nationwide positivity rate. University of Oxford's Our World in Data attempts to track public reporting on individuals tested vs positive cases of COVID-19. For the US, it estimates 14.25% of those tested are positive. Last week, the US was significantly behind in testing, near the bottom of all countries worldwide. As of March 20th, a week later, the US is much closer to other G8 and European countries, but there is a long way to go. Based on the initial results and the results from other countries.
Yeah. هذا الشارت يوري the number of countries that were tested. And like Iceland, they did about 26,772.3 as of March 20th, 2020. United Arab Emirates الإمارات 12,738 tested per millions. High per capita. أنا أعتقد طيت definition مالتها earlier. أستراليا 4,400. كندا 3,300. ألمانيا 2023. أستراليا 1777. بريطانيا 959. yeah. Most recent data of the which is estimated or calculated by world officials.
Based on the initial results and the results from other countries, the total number of positive COVID-19 cases will increase as testing increases, but the fatality rate will continue to.
يقول أغلب الأوقات إحنا حنشوف الرقم حيصعد لأنه قاعد يكثرون التستينج. So the more tests they will do, the more cases they will find.
Based on the initial results and the results from other countries, the total number of positive COVID-19 cases will increase as testing increases, but the fatality rate will continue to fall and the severity case mix will fall. In general,
الفاتاليتي ريت معناها الديث ريت. دائما تسمع الفاتاليتي ريت.
In general, the size of the U.S. population infected with COVID-19 will be much smaller than originally estimated, as most symptomatic individuals aren't positive. 93%, 99% have other conditions. Globally,
يقول كل الناس اللي they are tested positive 93 إلى 99% عندهم أمراض ثانية.
Globally, the U.S. has a long way to go to catch up in testing. As testing expands, the total number of cases will increase, but the mild to severe case ratio will decline dramatically. 1% of cases will be severe.
اكو mild اكو high measurement. هو قاعد هذا قاعد يحكي scientifically mild to severe cases، يعني من اعراض خفيفة الى critical. so اكو ratio بيها. يقول هذا will be declining قريبا ان شاء الله.
1% of cases will be severe. Looking at the whole funnel from top to bottom, 1%.
يقول only 1%. دائما يقولوا لك 2% إلى 3%. هو على حسب الستادي مالته as of 10 days ago يقول 1% يكون severe.
Looking at the whole funnel from top to bottom, 1% of everyone who is tested for COVID-19 with the US will have a severe case that will require a hospital visit or long-term admission. Globally, 80 to 85% of all cases are mild. These will not.
يقول بالعالم 80 إلى 85% of all cases كلهن mild، يعني ما يحتاج تروح للمستشفى لأن الاميون سيستم مالتهم قوي، وما يحتاج يروح مثل ما تفضلت. حتى no treatment is effective.
These will not require a hospital visit and home-based treatment / no treatment is effective. As of mid-March, the US.
هذا الchart cases that were not identified and not diagnosed. 81% mild cases, 14% severe cases, 5% critical cases. هذا اللي خلوه بال World Health Organization. هذا اللي قاعد يسوي قاعد اكتشف انه المعلومات اللي قاعد يخلوها بالويب سايتات وبالاخبار مثل ما يشوفون الوراي هي معلومات تخلي عند الناس هستيريا. فهو يقول لهم قبل ما تلعبون او اي شيء show me the numbers.
As of mid-March, the US has a significantly lower case severity rate than other countries. Our current severe case load is similar to South Korea. This data has been spotty in the past, however, lower severity is reflected in the US COVID-19 fatality rates, addressed later. Early reports from CDC suggest that 12% of COVID-19 cases need some form of hospitalization, which is lower than the projected severity rate of 20%, with 80% being mild cases. For context, this year's flu season has led.
يقول أول ما بلشت الCDC قالوا إنه 12% من الكوفيد كيسز أصحاب الكورونا يرادلهم يروحون للمستشفى، which is lower than the projected severity rate of 20% with 80% being mild. يقول فجأة صعد هذا الرقم من 12% إلى 20%.
For context, this year's flu season has led to at least 17 million medical visits and 370,000 hospitalizations.
يقول الفلو سيزن احنا بها لحد الآن أكثر من 17 مليون شخص راح الميديكال سوى ميديكال فيزيتس، و370 ألف شخص من عندهم راحوا للمستشفى، و30 سويت راحت right here 30 إلى 50 مليون infections. Recalling that only comparing aggregate total cases isn't helpful. Breaking down active cases on per capita basis paints a different picture on severity. This is the data as of March 20th of 2020. إيطاليا هاي مالت الفلو سيزن مالتهم per capita 37,860 منهم 2,655 severe cases 7% severity 626 شخص كل مليون وهيك اللي يبلش الحساب.
For context, this year's flu season has led to at least 17 million medical visits and 370,000 hospitalizations, 0.1%, out of 30 to 50 million infections. Recalling that only comparing aggregate total cases isn't helpful, breaking down active cases on a per capita basis paints a different picture on severity. This is data as of March 20, 2020. Declining fatality rate. As the US continues to expand testing, the case fatality rate will decline over the next few weeks. There is little doubt that serious and fatal cases of COVID-19 are being properly recorded. What is unclear is the total size of mild cases. Who originally estimated a case fatality rate of 4%.
إذا تلاحظون إنه من يقولون a number of cases ما يقولون كم شخص من عندهم عنده mild cases كم شخص من عنده pre-existent يعني health conditions. هاي كل هالأمور ما يذيعوها بس يبينون إنه لقوا تقريبا 80,000 شخص positive بكورونا 7,000 شخص ميت. ما يكتبون recovered قليل من الويب سايت إنه يقولوا لك كم شخص it's been recovered. زين أنت من تكتب من يكتبون 80,000 و7,000 و100,000 العفو نقول 50,000 recovered. أنت تعرف أنه تقريبا about 23,000 دولة they still at the hospital they're being treated. So دولة أما يروحون we are recovered وأما عندهم mild symptoms.
Who originally estimated a case fatality rate of 4% at the beginning of the outbreak but revised estimates downward 2.3%, 3% for all age groups. CDC estimates 0.5%, 3%, however stresses that closer to 1% is more probable. Dr. Paul Awerder estimated 0.5%, 2%, leaning towards the lower end. A paper released on March 19 analyzed a wider data set from China and lowered the fatality rate to 1.4%. This won't be clear for the US until we see the broader population that is positive but with mild cases. With little doubt, the fatality rate and severity rate will decline as more people are tested and more mild cases are counted. Higher fatality rates in China, Iran, and Italy are more likely associated with a sudden shock to the healthcare system unable to address demands and doesn't accurately reflect viral fatality rates. As COVID-19 spread throughout China, the fatality rate drastically fell outside of Hubei. This was attributed to the outbreak slowing spreading to several provinces with low infection rates. John P. A.
يقول الأرقام صعدت بالصين وإيران وإيطاليا لأنهم يعني ما كانوا حاسبين حساب هذا المرض ينتشر فأغلب المستشفيات مالتهم ما قدرت يعني to take care of them, treat them.
Ioannidis is professor of medicine, of epidemiology and population health, of biomedical data science, and of statistics at Stanford University and co-director of Stanford's Meta Research Innovation Center recently wrote about fatality rates and how our current instrumentation is leading to faulty policy solutions. The one situation where an entire, closed population was tested was the Diamond Princess cruise ship and its quarantine passengers. The case fatality rate there was 1%, but this was a largely elderly population, in which the death rate from COVID-19 is much higher.
يقول بالكروز شيب مالت دايموند من سووا التست للركاب مالتها بس 1% من الأشخاص ماتوا والأشخاص اللي ماتوا هم كانوا عبارة عن يعني ناس كبار بالسن.
projecting the Diamond Princess mortality rate onto the age structure of the U.S. population, the death rate among people infected with COVID-19 would be 0.125%.
شوف الرقم
But
كله
since this
صغير.
estimate is based on extremely thin data, there were just 7 deaths among the 700 infected passengers and crew. The real death rate could stretch from 5 times lower, 0.025%, to 5 times higher, 0.625%. It is also
يقول إذا نستعمل نفس القاعدة مات الكروز شيب على أمريكا حنشوف الأرقام تكون كلش قليلة.
It is also possible that some of the passengers who were infected might die later, and that tourists may have different frequencies of chronic diseases, a risk factor for worse outcomes with SARS-CoV-2 infection than the general population. Adding these extra sources of uncertainty, reasonable estimates for the case fatality ratio in the general U.S. population vary from 0.05% to 1%. Looking at the U.S. fatality, the fatality rate is drastically declining as the number of cases increases, having every 4 or 5 days. The fatality rate will eventually level off and plateau as the U.S. case mix becomes apparent. 4.06% March 8, 22 deaths of 541 cases. 3.69% March 9, 26 of 704.
قاعد يعطي النسبة المئوية على إذا يموتون 22 واحد من النسبة 541، 26 من نسبة 704. هاي الأرقام جاية من هيك حسابات. وهذا السورس مالته هو Worldometers. Spain. Coronavirus deaths in Italy and Spain are increasing much more rapidly than they did in China.
.69% March 9, 26 of mapped against other countries. Our fatality rate and case mix are following a similar pattern to South Korea, which is a good sign, a supposed model of how to manage COVID-19. Here are deaths weighted by the total number of cases as of March 20.
يقول هنا death by age group. US شوفوا as of March 20th من 10 إلى 40 سنة كانوا ماكو شي، بس من 40 إلى 49 النسبة 50 إلى 59. فكل ما يكبر الشخص كل ما ال chances of them dying it's more. الله يحفظنا.
Here are deaths weighted by the total number of cases as of March 20, 2020. Ranked by the total number of cases, our death rate is closer to South Korea's than Spain's or Italy's. The initial higher fatality rate for the US is trending much lower than originally estimated.
دائما هيك يطلعون total number of cases versus total deaths. That's what they do. هاي المقارنة السيزونال فلو بالكوفيد 19. all ages النسبة مالته 0.1 0 to 17.004 مقارنة بكوفيد all ages is 2.3%. cases fatality rate with COVID outbreaks in China for the period up to February 11, 2020. Study about half deaths within almost all fit similar demographic profile as other global 11,000 fatalities. Other Mediterranean disease, bird flu, coronavirus estimated range, polio, Spanish flu, seasonal flu.
Another analysis by Nature, comparing the fatality rate, since revised down, and infectious rate of COVID-19 to other illnesses. COVID-19 is now within range of its other sisters of less potent coronaviruses. As the global health community continues to gather and report data, the claim that COVID-19 isn't just like the flu, though still severe, is looking less credible as fatality rates continue to decline and measuring of mild cases increases.
هم مقارنة كورونا بالفلو قاعد يقولون انه يوم عن يوم الشغلة تبين less credible لانه الارقام مالت الناس اللي قاعد يموتون قاعد تقل والمايلد cases قاعد تكثر.
As the global health community continues to gather and report data, the claim that COVID-19 isn't just like the flu, though still severe, is looking less credible as fatality rates continue to decline and measuring of mild cases increases. It is important to consider case mix when looking at fatality rates. The fatality rate is significantly higher for patients with an underlying condition.
Patients with underlying conditions يعني ذول already عندهم أمراض ثانية. Cardiovascular disease 10.5 chance of them يعني becoming critical and severe. Diabetes الناس هذول عندهم سكر. Chronic respiratory disease, hypertension, cancer, no health condition. Individuals with underlying health conditions are most vulnerable than those without. يقول أغلب الأوقات chances مات الأشخاص اللي حيتأذون بكورونا فيروس هم اللي عندهم أمراض ثانية.
The fatality rate is significantly higher for patients with an underlying condition. The fatality rates by underlying condition mimics the rise in the average fatality rate with those with underlying conditions who get the seasonal flu. Pneumonia and influenza, 1.53%, 1.93%. Chronic lower respiratory disease, 1.48%, 1.93%. All respiratory causes, 3.04%, 4.14%. Heart disease, 3.21%, 4.4%. Cancer, 0.68%, 1.05%. Diabetes, 0.26%, 0.39%. For all underlying conditions, 10.17%, 13.67%. Comparing case mix across countries with a wide range of fatality, China and Italy, and those with low fatality rates, S. Korea, reveals a stark difference in age, therefore, underlying conditions also vary significantly across countries. These two factors contribute the most to a country's fatality rate. Never miss the news that matters most. Based on an initial CDC study of 2,449 COVID-19 cases, almost half of current U.S. cases have missing demographic data. The United States case mix looks more like S. Korea and Germany rather than China or Italy. Approximately 69%.
يقول إذا تريد تقارن لازم تقارن اللي قاعد يصير بجنوب كوريا وألمانيا ويا أمريكا، لا تقارنها بالصين أو إيطاليا.
Approximately 69% of COVID-19 cases are in the lower at-risk population of under 65, while 31% are older than 65 higher-risk population. This suggests
يقول الناس اللي عندهم lower risk population هم الناس اللي تحت عمر 65 تقريبا 69%، والناس ال 31% are older than 65 they have higher risk at being infected.
This suggests the US will experience a declining fatality rate. However, the US has over 100 million adults with underlying and chronic illnesses that will negatively impact our fatality rate. An older population skew within the infected population.
يقول أمريكا they will experience declining fatality rate. However, the US has over 100 million adults. يقول أكثر من 100 مليون شخص دول كلهم عندهم أمراض ثانية chronic illnesses and that will negatively impact our fatality rate. يقول هذا الرقم يمكن يصعد ال death rate مالتنا by أرقام خيالية.
An older population skew within the infected population explains most of the disparity in fatality rates between high and low countries. According to a study of the
هنا مسوين دراسة الفرق بين الفيميل والميل من ناحية انه اللي ياخذون الاعراض مالت الكوفيد 19. هذا الفرق تقريبا identical.
An older population skew within the infected population explains most of the disparity in fatality rates between high and low countries. According to a study of the fatalities of COVID-19 cases in Italy, 99% of all deaths had an underlying pathology. Only 0.8% had no underlying condition. Most of those infected in Italy were
يقول تقريبا 99% من دول اللي ماتوا بإيطاليا عندهم أمراض ثانية. only 0.8% had no underlying conditions. يعني الماتوا أقل من 1% بسبب كورونا. رقم مو big at all.
Most of those infected in Italy were over the age of 60, but the median age of a
هذا الجراف shows الفرق. 25.1 one other illnesses, no other illnesses 0.8%. 48% عندهم ثلاثة يعني عندهم high blood pressure, cholesterol, heart problems. 25% 25.6 عندهم two other illnesses, يمكن عندهم سكر أو مرض قلب أو عندهم سكر أو مرض رئوي. 25.1 عندهم one other illness, يعني عندهم حاجة أما يكون diabetic, high blood pressure, stuff like that.
Most of those infected in Italy were over the age of 60, but the median age of a fatality was 80. All of Italy's fatality
يقول كل الناس اللي بإيطاليا they were infected عمرهم 60 سنة, بس الناس اللي تأثر بهم المرض هم عمرهم 80 سنة. معلومات.
All of Italy's fatality under the age of 40 were males with serious pre-existing medical conditions.
يقول دول اللي ماتوا اللي تحت عمر 40 سنة هم عندهم مشاكل صحية already.
All of Italy's fatality under the age of 40 were males with serious pre-existing medical conditions. This doesn't factor in a wide variance in healthcare capacity, such as hospital beds per 1,000 citizens, which could affect health outcomes. However, this doesn't seem to be highly correlated with fatality rates at this moment. Korea 11.5. Germany 8.3. So what should we do? The first rule of medicine is to do no harm.
يقول شنو الحاجات اللي حنسويها بعد ما شفنا الداتا, بعد ما عرفنا what's going on. فهنا هذا هم كلش مهمة.
The first rule of medicine is to do no harm. Local government.
يقول أول حاجة, أول قانون عند الأطباء إنهم ما لازم يأذون الناس. The first rule of medicine is do no harm.
Local governments and politicians are inflicting massive harm and disruption with little evidence to support their draconian edicts. Every local government is in a mimetic race to one-up each other in authoritarian city ordinances to show us who has more abundance of caution.
يقول اغلب الدول بالحكومات الفدراليه او الستيت ليفل او السيتي ليفل، او دول الناس اللي احنا we elected them، كلهم قاعد يسابقون حتى يورون الابundance of cautious of caution. يعني شنو الحاجات اللي لازم نسويها. يعني السياسيين عندهم قاعد يركضون انه على بانه يسوون ستيت لوك داون. لازم يعني ما قاعد يعطون اي يعني solutions، بس مركزين على البروبلم اكثر شيء.
Politicians are competing, not on more evidence or more COVID-19 cures but more caution. As
يقول ما قاعد يركزون على الحاجات الايفيدنس. ما اعرف شنو معنى ايفيدنس بالعربي. الدليل، ما عندهم اي ادله.
As unemployment rises and families feel unbearably burdened already, they feel pressure to fix the situation they created with even more radical and creative policy solutions. This only creates more problems and an even larger.
يقول اغلب الاوقات انه ما قاعد الامبلويمنت قاعد الناس البطاله قاعد تكثر، والعوائل اللي قاعد تحس بضيقة نفس and يحسون بضغط كلش بالوضع، وهم ما يعني they're not trying to fix it.
This only creates more problems and an even larger snowball effect. The first place to start is to stop killing the patient and focus on what works. Start with basic hygiene.
يقول لازم يركزون على الحل، وما يركزون على قتل المرضى. هاي حرب سياسية.
Start with basic hygiene. The most effective means to reduce spread is basic hygiene. Most Americans don't wash their hands enough and aren't aware of how to actually wash your hands.
يقول أغلب الأوقات الأمريكان ما يعرفون شلون يغسلون يديهم، وما يغسلون يديهم anyway.
Masks aren't particularly effective if you touch your eyes with infected hands. Ask
يقول حتى لو تلبس الماسك، إذا أنت حتقيس عينك، الماسك شنو فائدته؟
Ask businesses and public places to freely distribute disinfectant wipes and hand sanitizer to the customers and patrons.
يقول أغلب الأوقات لازم البزنسات الموجودة بالمنطقة لازم يعطوك هاند سانيتايزر من تدخل حتى تمسح ايدك، او من تخرج حتى تمسح ايدك، او المناطق العربة اللي تجي بيها اكل لازم it's all been disinfected.
If you get sick or feel sick, stay home.
إذا أنت تمرضت أو عندك شعور بالمرض، خليك بالبيت.
If you get sick or feel sick, stay home. These are basic rules for preventing illness that doesn't require trillions of dollars.
يقول هاي الأمور حاجات بسيطة، وهاي إذا تسويها تخلي الحكومة ما تدفع تريليونات من الدولارات حتى تصلح كل شيء.
These are basic rules for preventing illness that doesn't require trillions of dollars. More data. The best examples of defeating COVID-19 requires lots of data. We are very behind in measuring our population and the impact of the virus, but this has turned a corner the last few days. The swift change in direction should be applauded. Private companies are quickly developing and deploying tests, much faster than CDC could ever imagine. The inclusion of private businesses in developing solutions is creative and admirable. Data will calm nerves and allow us to utilize more evidence in our strategy. Once we have proper measurement implemented, the ability to test hundreds every day in a given metro, let's add even more data into that funnel.
يقول من يكون عندنا البيانات الكافية حتى نعرف شلون نقدر نحل هاي المشكلة. يقول القطاع الخاص ساهم بشكل يعني كبير بمساعدة الحكومة. يعني الرئيس الأمريكي أمس شكر ابت لابس، وشكر شركة اسمها روش، وشكر كابل كومبانيز، لانه هاي ساعدت السي دي سي انه يكونون مور افكتيف، يعني سريعين شلون how to combat it.
Once we have proper measurement implemented, the ability to test hundreds every day in a given metro, let's add even more data into that funnel. Reopen public.
أمس الرئيس الأمريكي قال حيسوي أكثر من 100,000 تيستينج يوميا، فهاي it's very good.
Once we have proper measurement implemented, the ability to test hundreds every day in a given metro, let's add even more data into that funnel. Reopen public life. Open schools. Closing schools is counterproductive. The economic cost for closing schools in the U.S. for 4 weeks could cost between $10 and $47 billion, 0.1 to 0.
يقول المدارس كل ما تكون هي مسكرة the cost of closing schools in the US for 4 weeks، يعني شهر إذا يسكر كل المدارس بأمريكا تكلف الحكومة الفيدرالية between 10 to 47 billion dollars، يعني 0.1 to 0.3% of the GDP هو gross domestic product.
For 4 weeks could cost between $10 and $47 billion, 0.1 to 0.3% of GDP, and lead to a reduction of 6% to 19% in key healthcare personnel. CDC's guidance on closing schools specifically for COVID-19. Available modeling data indicate that early, short to medium closures do not impact the AP curve of COVID-19 or available healthcare measures, e.g. hospitalizations. There may be some impact of much longer closures, 8 weeks, 20 weeks, further into community spread, but that modeling also shows that other mitigation efforts, e.g. hand washing, home isolation, have more impact on both spread of disease and healthcare measures.
يقول يعني available modeling عندهم هم model يشتغلون عليها تبين بأنه there might be some impact of much longer closure 8 to 20 weeks، يعني محافظة الولاية مات ميشيغان ويدمر حتعلن هذا الأسبوع بأنه السكول حتتسكر نهاية السنة، يعني it's crazy. Further into community spread, but the modeling also shows that other mitigations efforts, e.g. hand washing, home isolations, have more impact on both spread of the disease and healthcare measures. يقول من تغسل ايدك وتقعد بالبيت وما تلتقي بهواي ناس، هاي انت حتقلل النسبة مات الانتشار الكورونا.
Hand washing, home isolation, have more impact on both spread of disease and healthcare measures. In other countries, those places who closed school, e.g. Hong Kong, have not had more success in reducing spread than those that did not, e.g.
يقول بهونغ كونغ ما يعني من سكروا المدارس ما لقوا أي فرق، يعني لو عاي فيها أوبن أحسن لهم، بس احنا ما نقدر it's a big risk.
G. Singapore. Based on transmission evidence, children are more likely to catch COVID-19 in the home than at school. As well, they are more likely to expose older vulnerable adults as multi-generational homes are more common. As well, the school provides a single point of testing a large population for a possible infection in the home to prevent community spread. Open up public spaces. With such little evidence of prolific community spread and our guiding healthcare institutions reporting the same results, shuttering the local economy is a distraction and arbitrary with limited accretive gain outside of greatly annoying millions and bankrupting hundreds of businesses. The data is overwhelming at this point that community-based spread and airborne transmission is not a threat. We don't have significant examples.
قاعد هذا الشخص قاعد يحاول يستفسر، يقول انه ليش اوكي الحاجة احنا نريد نهتم بالشعب مالتنا، ليش انت تخلي هاي الضغط الكبير على البزنسات بانهم يسكرهن؟ هاي حتسبب مشكلة ثانية غير المشكلة اللي انت قاعد تفكر بيها. لانه يقول الكوميونتي سبريد، هذا الانتشار بين المجتمع، ما له اي حقيقة.
We
Again,
don't have
I'm not a
significant
doctor.
examples of spreading through restaurants
I'm
or
just a
gyms.
researcher.
When you consider the environment COVID-19 prefers, isolating every family in their home is a perfect situation for infection and transmission among other family members.
من حتظل تسمع هذا الريبورت حتعرف انه هذا ليش الريبورت ما يقدرون يخلوه على الانترنت، ليش قاعد يشيلوه؟ لانه ما قاعد يوري الحقيقة، ما قاعد يخوف الناس. بس اكو حسوي فيديوهات ثانية حاحكي على الفيروس منو هو يملك براءة الاختراع عليه، الاشخاص اللي يعني المتكفلين به، ومنو شو اسم الاشخاص اللي سووا له ليك بوهان تشاينا. هاي كلها ان شاء الله جاية بالفيديوهات القادمة ان شاء الله.
Evidence from South Korea and Singapore shows that it is completely possible and preferred to continue on with life while making accommodations that are data-driven, such as social distancing and regular temperature checks. Support business and productivity. The data shows that the overwhelming majority of the working population will not be personally impacted, both individually or their children. This is an unnecessary burden that is distracting resources and energy away from those who need it the most. By preventing Americans from being productive and specializing at what they do best, their vocation, we are pulling resources towards unproductive tasks and damaging the economy. We will need money for this fight. At this rate, we will spend more money on shelter in place than if we completely rebuild our acute care and emergency capacity. Source: https://www. Macrobond. com/post/blog Central banks go big COVID-19 market crash crisis/. Americans won't have the freedom to go help those who get sick, volunteer their time at a hospital, or give generously to a charity. Instead, big government came barreling in like a bull in a china shop claiming they could solve COVID-19. The same government that continued to not test incoming passengers from Europe and who couldn't manufacture it.
الحاجة الغريبة يقول American won't have the freedom to go help those who get sick, volunteer their time at the hospital. يعني هاي حاجة مهمة، بأن إذا عندنا إحنا قلة بالكوادر الموجودة بالمستشفيات، لو يسوون يقدرون يعلمون الأشخاص الاعتياديين شلون يقدرون يساعدون الدكتور أو يساعدون النرسات. هاي حيساعد من الفوضى اللي قاعد يصير هسه.
The same government that continued to not test incoming passengers from Europe and who couldn't manufacture enough test kits with 2 months' notice. Let Americans be free to be a part of the solution, calling us to a higher civic duty to help those most in need and protect the vulnerable.
يقول هو نفس الحكومة الهسه اللي قاعد موقفة كل شيء، هي نفس الحكومة الما سوت تيستينج لذول اللي قاعد يجون من الخارج، او ما بينت انهم ما عندهم يعني ما جاهزين حتى يقدرون يحلون هالأزمة اللي هسه مروا بيها. يقول خلي الامريكان يساعدون الحكومة حتى يوقفون ويا الناس المصابين، يعلموهم شلون يسوون الوقاية حتى نقدر حياتنا ترجع مثل الأول.
Not sitting in isolation like losers. People fear what the government will do, not an infection. Rampant hoarding and a volatile stock market aren't being driven by COVID-19.
يقول أغلب الأوقات الناس تخاف من الحكومة. الحكومة إيش قاعد تسوي أكثر من ما قاعد يخافون من المرض نفسه.
Rampant hoarding and a volatile stock market aren't being driven by COVID-19. An overwhelming majority of Americans don't believe they will be infected. Rather, hoarding behavior strongly demonstrates an irrational hysteria, from purchasing infective household masks to buying toilet paper in the troves. This fear is being driven by government action, fearing what the government will do next. In South Korea, most citizens didn't fear infection but the government and public shaming. By presenting a consistent and clear plan that is targeted and specific to those who need the most help will reduce the volatility and hysteria. A sign the logic behind these government actions aren't widely accepted, nor believed as rational by the American people is the existence itself of the volatility and hysteria. Over 3/4 of Americans are scared not of COVID-19 but what it is doing to our society. In CDC
يقول أغلب الأوقات الأمريكان ما خايفين من الكورونا، خايفين من الكورونا إيش حتسوي للمجتمع مالتنا. لأنه يعني أنا اليوم رحت البس باي وقفونا باللاين، ما ممنوع تدخل للبس باي. رحت البابايا، 4 يدخلون، 6 يدخلون. الجاز ستيشن ما تقدر تدخل بعد للانسايد. هواية أمور حياتنا كلها تغيرت. هل هاي الحكومة قاعد هيك تفكر أم الشعب قاعد يتغير شوي.
In CDC's worst-case scenario, CDC expects more than 150 to 200 million infections within the U.S. This estimate is hundreds of times bigger than China's infection.
يقول الCDC قاعد تحكي بأنه يتوقعون 150 إلى 200 مليون أمريكي get infected.
This estimate is hundreds of times bigger than China's infection rate, 30% of our population compared to 0.006% in China. Does that really sound plausible to you?
No.
China has a subpar healthcare system, attempted to suppress the news about COVID-19 early on, a lack of transparency, an authoritarian government, and millions of Chinese.
يقول أغلب الأوقات الصينيين حاولوا أنه يقللون من أهمية المرض، فماكو أي guarantees بأنه قاعد يسوون نفس اللي سووه قبل، قاعد يسووه هسه، بأنه قاعد يقولوا لك everything is good, we're back to business, come do business with us. بس ما تعرف هل هو المرض هذا الموجود عندهم is being contained or not.
China has a subpar healthcare system, attempted to suppress the news about COVID-19 early on, a lack of transparency, an authoritarian government, and millions of Chinese traveling for the Lunar Festival at the height of the outbreak. In the US, we have a significant.
هو المشكلة من عندهم الصينيين كانوا يحتفلون بالرات يير. كل سنة عندهم حيوان يحتفلون به. هالسنة يعتبروها الرات أخذ حقوق البزونة، وهاي الرات يير لازم has to be challenging. حتى عندي I did a lot of studies about it. إن شاء الله بالفيديوهات الجاية هم نقرأ نسوي هيك حاجات.
In the US, we have a significant lead time, several therapies proving successful, transparency, a top-tier healthcare system, a democratic government, and media providing ample accountability. Infection isn't our primary risk at this point. Expand medical capacity. COVID-19 is a significant medical threat that needs to be tackled, both finding a cure and limiting spread. However, some would argue that a country's authoritarian response to COVID-19 helped stop the spread. Probably not. In South Korea and Taiwan, I can go to the gym and eat at a restaurant, which is more than I can say about San Francisco and New York, despite a significantly lower caseload on a per capita basis. None of the countries the global health authorities admire for their approach issued shelter-in-place orders, rather they used data, measurement, and promoted common-sense self-hygiene. Does stopping air travel have a greater impact than closing all restaurants? Does closing schools reduce the infection rate by 10%? Not one policymaker has offered evidence of any of these approaches. Typically,
يقول does stopping air travels have a greater impact than closing all restaurants؟ يقول هل وقفوا الطيران من لأوروبا والدول الثانية أو closing all restaurant حيسوي أي شيء؟ يقول تسكير المدارس هل هو حيقلل الريت by 10%؟ يقول ولا واحد من دول السياسيين قدموا أي بيانات بأنه هذين الحاجات اللي قاعد يسووها بيها نتائج. واغلب الناس الموجودين بالعالم قاعد يستخدمون البيانات مالت امريكا، وما قاعد يستخدمون البيانات مالتهم.
Typically, the argument given is out of an abundance of caution. I didn't know there was such a law. Let's be frank, these acts are emotionally driven by fear, not evidence-based thinking in the process of destroying people's lives overnight. While all of these decisions are made by elites isolated in their castles of power and ego, the shock is utterly devastating Main Street. A friend who runs a guy will run out of cash in a few weeks.
يقول اغلب الناس اللي قرروا هاي يسوون هاي القرارات هم قاعدين بقصورهم وما مهتمين بوضع الناس. يقول a friend who runs a guy will run out of cash in a few weeks. يقول اي صديق نعرفه هو باسبوعين يفلس.
A friend who runs a guy will run out of cash in a few weeks. A friend who is a pastor let go of half of his staff as donations fell by 60%.
يقول هذا القس اقل لانه ما يجوا لناس، طلع الستاف مالته، خلى بس 40% و60% طلعهم لان ما حد قاعد يجي للكنيسة.
A friend who is a pastor let go of half of his staff as donations fell by 60%. A waitress at my favorite breakfast place told me her family will have no income in a few days as they force the closure of restaurants. While
هواي ناس متأذين من هاي التسكيرات اللي قاعدة تصير. كلهم أغلب الناس هنا عايشين paycheck to paycheck، يعني من تشك ما يقدرون يعيشون أكثر من، يعني هاي البطالة حتصير حاجة مو طبيعية.
While political elites twiddle their thumbs with models and projections based on faulty assumptions, people's lives are being destroyed with Marxian vigor. The best compromise elites can come up with is $2,000. Does it make more sense for us to pay a tax to expand medical capacity quickly or pay the cost to our whole nation of a recession? Take the example of closing schools, which will easily cost our economy $50 billion. For that single unanimous totalitarian act, we could have built 50 hospitals with 500 plus beds per hospital.
يقول ما كان ما تسكر المدارس وكوست our economy $50 مليار، تقدر تاخذ $50 مليار وتبني بيها مستشفيات.
Eliminate arcane certificate of need and expand acute medical capacity to support possible higher healthcare utilization this season. Don't let them forget it and vote.
بس الحكومة الفيدرالية عندهم 2 ships، واحدة ودوها نيويورك وواحدة موجودة هسه بكاليفورنيا، قاعد يستخدموها مستشفيات على المي floating hospitals، وقاعد ياخذون أماكن كانوا يسوون بها conferences و big events، قاعد يحولوها إلى مستشفيات. سووها هاي بجافيد سنتر بنيويورك، وهسه أعتقد الكوبا هول الموجود بديترويت حيحولوه المستشفى همات.
Don't let them forget it and vote. These days are precarious as governors float the idea of martial law for not following social distancing, as well as they liked, while they violate those same rules on national TV. Remember, this tone is for a virus that has impacted 0.004% of our population. Imagine if this was a truly existential threat to our republic. The COVID.
يقول لا تنسى شلون السياسيين قاعد يتعاملون ويانا بهاي المرحلة، فخلي الصوت مالتك يبين مرة جاية من يريدوك تنتخبهم.
The COVID-19 hysteria is pushing aside our protections as individual citizens and permanently harming our free, tolerant, open civil society. Data is data. Facts are facts. We should be focused on resolving COVID-19 with continued testing, measuring, and be vigilant about protecting those with underlying conditions and the elderly from exposure. We are blessed in one way: there is an election in November. Never forget what happened and vote. You may ask yourself, who is this guy? Who is this author? I'm a nobody. That is also the point. The average American feels utterly powerless right now. I'm an individual American who sees his community and loved ones being decimated without given a choice, without
قاعد يقول you may ask yourself who's this guy قاعد تحكي على نفسه. who's this author? I'm nobody. يقول أنا ما أهتم تعرفني شئت أم ما تعرفني. البيانات هي البيانات، الحقيقة هي الحقيقة. هاي الحاجات الموجودة اللي ورانيها وكلها تبي honest. اكو بعض الأحيان هاي شوف هاي this is هاي كلها بيانات يعني هوامش تقدر you can always check the sources. So he did not create this information out of thin air. It's well written article. I loved it. I enjoyed it. Actually استخدمت I'm doing more research about corona than anything else.
I'm an individual American who sees his community and loved ones being decimated without given a choice, without empathy, and while the media cheers on with high ratings. When this is all over, look for massive confirmation bias and pyrrhic celebration by elites. There will be vain cheering in the halls of power as Main Street sits in pieces. Expect no apology, that would be political suicide. Rather, expect to be given a Jedi mind trick of I'm the government and I helped. The health of the state will be even stronger with more Americans dependent on welfare, another trillion stimulus filled with pork for powerful friends, and a bailout for companies that charged us $200 change fees for nearly a decade. Washington, D.C. will be fine. New York will still have all of the money in the world. Our communities will be left with nothing but a shadow of the longest bull market in the history of our country.
Yeah. يقول من هاي تخلص واشنطن دي سي حتكون فاين. نيويورك حتكون كل موجود عندهم كل الفلوس مات العالم. يقول بس الناس اللي حيتأذون من هذا المرض هو our communities left in a shadow. وتحياتي إلى أخواتي وأخواني الأعزاء ومعاكم نهار. وإن شاء الله أسوي more videos of this. ومن فضلكم أعطونا رأيكم بهذا الفيديو وتحياتي. let me see